welcome to our premiere show for LifeWorks Live. I'm Lisa Hogue.
I'm Don Hogue.
And welcome to our show. This is the show where you can call in with your tough questions and we'll give you the real answers. We want to thank Jess Palmer with Jess FM Radio and TV for giving us our own show. And after we were a guest on the Borealis show. So we thank Aurora for that. So if you want to listen to us live, it's www.jessfm.ca or YouTube is Jess TV or Facebook Live Jess FM on the Facebook page, or you can also follow Jess FM on Instagram at JessFMYQL.
All right, we are LifeWorks International. That's the company we've created, and we're excited to be here on Jess TV and Jess FM and Jeff's Live and everything that they're doing. So we have a holistic and wellness clinic here in Lethbridge. It's called LifeWorks International. Our website is lifeworksinternational.ca. We've had this clinic for about 20 years, and I've been a chiropractor for 28 years. And I also work at a clinic in Okotoks, Healing Hands Wellness Center. I do a couple days a week there as well with a good friend of mine, a chiropractor I've known since I was a teenager. What else? We've internationally certified Heal Your Life coaches and workshop trainers. And we also have been, between the two of us, have been working with Insight Counseling and Training for over 10 years, doing our own personal growth work and healing work, and as well as mentoring and coaching other people and supporting there. What we specialize in is couples coaching, family coaching, personal coaching, and we do a couple retreats every year, 2 week-long retreats in Radium Hot Springs, BC, and we help staff those retreats. And that's kind of what we've been up to.
All right, I'll tell you a little bit about our clinic. We are in Lethbridge here at 245A, 12A Street North in Lethbridge. Dawn and I are both there. We also have 4 massage therapists, a registered clinical psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. We've got Reiki masters, alternative holistic practitioners, so that offer services such as Indian head massage, sound bath therapy, meditation classes, and so much more. One other fun thing that we're offering at LifeWorks International is Wellness Wednesdays. So we invite health and wellness professionals to come in and do free classes on anything that promotes more balance in the body, mind, and soul. And we have free classes on Wednesday nights at the clinic.
All right, so we do facilitate workshops here in Lethbridge. We do the Heal Your Life workshops, as well as workshops on conflict and relationships and parenting. And we also have a space in Okotoks at the Healing Hands Wellness Center. And we've also done workshops as far east as Regina and out in Kelowna, BC as well. We also facilitate corporate workshops for businesses to help with their staff and their management teams. Where do we go from there? So I think the primary reason we became life coaches is because we know the struggles of life. We've been through life, love, family, money, running our own businesses, health issues, all that kind of stuff. We've actually, been through lots of challenges in our lives, and we've worked through them. And now we like to help other people face and work through their challenges.
Okay, so we're going to let you know just some of the up-and-coming events that we have here in Lethbridge. First, we are partnering with the Conscious Partner. It's a organization that promotes health and well-being and conscious awareness to all over Western Canada. So we will be hosting workshops here in Lethbridge. The next one is May 23rd, and our focus will be the 5 love languages, if anybody's interested in that, we host them at Hudson's Pub, and they start at 6:30 and go till about 9:30. The next one in June is June 23rd, and the topic will be conflict management, and we all know that we've all been through our own amount of conflict, so it's a good place to learn about where it all stems from in our life. We also have, in June, we're doing a conscious parenting workshop at the Shanti Hollow Yoga and Retreat Place in Pincher Creek. So we're excited about that one on a Sunday afternoon. And then we also have a relationship recovery workshop in July here in Lethbridge. But what's coming up this weekend, we support staff, a team, Insight Counseling and Training in Calgary. And the event that we're having is from May 2nd to May 5th. It's called Celebrating Abundance. If anyone's interested in that event, just let us know. We'll let you know the times. There's a free lecture on Thursday. It's at the Four Points Sheraton in Northwest Calgary. So what we're going to talk about first to get started on the show is a little bit about us, so that you can understand where we come from and everything that we've come through and faced in our life, and we were brave enough to lean into the fears and everything that kept us stuck. So I'll just talk a little bit about my childhood. I have two older brothers. My parents and our family lived in Victoria. My parents were divorced shortly after I was born. And so there was lots of conflict in my home and lots of things that came up that were struggles. And then my dad got custody of us and brought us to Alberta. And that's what brought me to Alberta. So throughout my life, I understand the struggles of divorce, the struggles of living in a single parent home, and then my dad having custody of us, which was really unusual back in the 70s for a dad to be raising 3 kids, as well as my dad was then already in his 50s, so he was a great dad. He was an older dad, and we were a divorced family. So there was all those kinds of things that came up in my childhood that, created some of the things in our family that were hard to manage. So what happened with us is we managed through. My dad got remarried, so then now we had a stepmom, and all of us finished school, and I met my first husband really young and had my children, and all the challenges that came along with that, being step-parented, learning how to be a family, and the struggles, and it was all challenging because my parents weren't connected and supporting us in a true partnership out of love and support. There was a struggle there, so we felt a lot of that as kids, and it really shaped who I became as an adult. And then I brought all of that with me, of course, right into my adult life. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about the limiting beliefs that are created from our childhood, because we're going to have sort of that focus for today, because we really believe that that's where a lot of our struggles start. So the limiting beliefs that I decided when I was younger was that I'm not lovable, or I'm not enough. I couldn't save my parents' marriage. I saw the pain and the conflict there and thought I could fix it, and I couldn't. And so as a kid, you kind of decide these things about yourself. Nobody tells you anything. You just decide. So carrying that into a marriage, not being enough and not being lovable, and not seeing a family that's based out of love and connection and compassion and understanding saw a lot of conflict, and there was lots of things that were not said, and that plays right into being an adult and into my adult life and all the struggles that came along with that. So I'm going to pass it over to Don, and he can tell us about himself and about his childhood, which is completely different than mine.
Yeah, my childhood, I was actually quite a happy, easy childhood for myself. I had a stay-at-home mom and a dad that electrician for a father that, sometimes he worked out of town, but most of the time he was around, and we liked to have lots of fun and go on vacations, and we pretty much had everything we ever wanted as far as love and connection and support, and always had a bike to ride and food on the table, and I had an older brother that we were like best friends, so there was always activities and good friends around. I was the only thing, that one challenge that came up in my life was when I was 9 years old, and we moved from Calgary to Lethbridge, and then changing schools at that age, and new kids, new friends, and I didn't find that I got accepted as in the new school with kind of the what you call the cool kids at the new school. So it was a different experience than what I'd had at the previous school that I went to, and it kind of I think I just made this choice that I would it just kind of shut me down a little bit, and I went kind of from being a little more extroverted to a little more introverted, and just became a little quieter and not quite as outgoing, and so that would be one of the main challenges that I dealt with in my life, and it certainly carried into my adult life as well. So other than that, I mean, there's always that piece for sometimes for men in this society where there's that piece of entitlement and possibly some arrogance and those types of things. That Lisa's got a nice smile because she can recognize that in me. And again, not things that I was aware of until I actually started really looking at myself and looking at where my life was working in places, especially in relationship where my life wasn't working or was struggling or there was conflict showing up, and recognizing that it was pieces of myself where there were, again, things like arrogance and judgments, and this place where the right and wrong, and not that there isn't, you can judge things as right and wrong, but basically where you're saying that I'm right and you're wrong, and
Blame.
And blaming or that kind of thing. So recognize all those pieces and starting to unravel those, and starting to become a little more compassionate and recognize that a lot of people come from such different backgrounds, and people have different experiences, and different people have different rights and wrongs, and people have different values and reasons for doing what they do, and being very accepting of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to add to that before we're going to first say that the phone number that we've posted on our advertising, just because of technical things here at the studio, we're going to change the phone number in just a minute and allow you to call in on a number, and I will tell you in just a moment. What I wanted to add to Dawn and I's story is we've both been married before. We both have our children from our previous marriage. What I did want to add too is, I struggled in my first marriage, and I think the foundation of that, the disintegration of that relationship, was I really realized for myself, I needed to really look at myself and take full responsibility for what I was bringing to that relationship, and drop the blame and drop the conflict, or like Dawn said, the need to, somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong, and how I do things and how my kid's dad did things. We were raised completely different with our own beliefs and values, and how we were taught how to do life and how to do family and how to manage with conflict in the home. So what I really realized when I started on my own personal growth journey, and you can pass me the Heal Your Life book, I started to really look into a lot of different authors that would help, and this is Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. this is a great book that helps you understand where you're not loving yourself, where you got lost in life, and your way back. It's like the GPS on how to find your way back to self-love and accepting yourself just the way you are, and realizing what you're allowing in your life. What's happening in your life is what you've allowed and what you've created. And again, we're going to talk about limiting beliefs and the limiting beliefs that I brought into that marriage. And a limiting belief, if you don't recognize it and take responsibility for it, will totally control everything in your life if you allow it. But once you realize what they are and how you can change them, then you can start a path to more self-love and acceptance, and a path of healthy boundaries and managing conflict and the triggers in your life. However, we do understand that's where it starts. So again, I started reading and I started understanding so much about how my childhood influenced my adulthood and how it limited me in so many ways. So after I was divorced from my first husband, after many years, 25 or more years, I really dove in deep to personal growth work and figuring out why my life wasn't successful and what was holding me back and keeping me stuck. And then I realized I loved this work, and I met Dawn after reading a book that my son, Ricky, gave me, and it's called Zero Limits. And it's about the ancient healing art of Ho'oponopono. And we can talk about that another time. But what really is cool about this story is I read this book that my son got me onto, and then Dawn's friend also gave him the book. So Dawn and I, we met on an online dating site, Match.com, and he had posted that he had read that book. So I thought any guy that had read that book and was willing to share it, I mean, it's an unusual book. It's not your average title, and it's it would be willing to check it out and see what kind of guy he was. So that's kind of how our relationship got started, and I'm so grateful because he was already doing personal growth work and workshops and coaching and mentoring people through the Insight Counseling and Training Program. So I was so grateful to meet a partner that was willing to do the work with me. And what that also really helps is we're each going to call each other out when we need to, right? And we both can say, you know, take responsibility for your part in it. I'll take my responsibility for myself, and we can grow together. And that's really the only way through. We can't use our old past conditioning and unsuccessful ways to create a successful life. So I'm grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that. So if Dawn has anything to add to that, I'm going to let you know first the phone number, because we're going to talk about limiting beliefs and how they're created first. But if you want to call in, the phone number is 403-632-4087.
Okay, yeah, I would add to that I'm talking about like being in a partnership where we do call each other out, and basically that actually just really simplifies things for us, because we take full responsibility for our thoughts and for our actions and for our reactions. And when we do react instead of responding, when we're reacting, we'll quickly catch each other and just say, hey, let's take a look at this and just see where we're at and see what these feelings are all about, see what this reaction's all about, and then we get to kind of move through it together with each other's support, and instead of getting into conflict or the blame game or any of those things that we've all experienced in the past.
And if I could share the greatest takeaway, and if there's one thing you can learn from this show today, in this short hour that is my aha moment on my journey was my husband's is not his job to make me happy. I'll say that again. It is not my husband's job to make me happy. That is my job and my job alone. So the journey to my own happiness and self-love is mine. Do I love having a partner alongside me to share that life with? Absolutely, 100%. But his job isn't to keep me happy. Mine is. And as well, like, his job is to live his journey and his happiness.
So my job is to be myself, and I hope that she loves me being myself and enjoys me being myself, and then we'll get along, and vice versa. And then she gets to be herself, and I get to enjoy her being herself and expressing herself. And certainly we do support each other and encourage each other, but we have to find our own joy and happiness from inside and make sure that we're doing what we want to do with our lives so that we are happy and fulfilled, and not expecting our partner to bring that to our life. They just add to it.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean to say, like, if he wants to bring me flowers and make me dinner, that makes me happy. I enjoy it, and I want more of it. But I can't look outside myself for my job or my kids or my partner or anything in my life to satisfy my life. I have to do that myself. So that's basically what we teach people in the coaching and the workshops, is to first become aware of what holds you back, and then decide what action steps you're willing to take to change it. So we're going to talk a little bit about limiting beliefs, and a lot of the work comes right out of Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, which we love and we have extensive training on. So the one thing that would you like to add, like, there's no topic that's off limits here?
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, in the number of years that we've been supporting other people doing whatever emotional work they need to do, and the traumas that they've suffered as in their childhoods and their families, and that there is really nothing off limits for us to talk about or to deal with. So, whether it's abuse, sexual abuse, suicides, everything's on the table, for sure. And all the relationship things that go on, all the conflicts that come up. So yeah, there's nothing that we haven't already experienced it and counseled our way through at some point.
Yeah, there's nothing you can't get through if you're aware of it, and if you decide that you want it to change, and then you're willing to do the work. There's really nothing, because we've worked with people with incredibly broken, wounded childhoods that can find freedom and joy and success and create a life that really works. And that's what we're all about. So we're going to start with just, we hear all the time in the media or on Facebook or Pinterest about, we got to let go of our limiting beliefs. What are our limiting beliefs? Like, where do they come from? So a limiting belief is everything that we learned in our childhood that pertains to men, women, love, sex, work, money. What did you hear in your home about success, failures, religion, people from other cultures, fears, food, friendship? It's endless. So we learned everything as a child, because if you can think for a minute, when you come into this world as a brand new baby, you're a clean slate. You have no ideas or presumptions or preconceived ideas about anything. All you really know is love, and you need your needs met. So as we learn these things from our family, from the culture we're in, the society or the religion that we're raised in, we learn it from the environments that we're raised in. So one example would be like Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. Like, when you were little, you believed 100% at Christmas time that Santa was coming, and you believed it. And nobody could have changed that for you until you became more aware and you grew up and you knew the truth and you could decide for yourself. Same with the tooth fairy. You believed that there'd be a quarter or a nickel or something under your pillow when you lost your tooth, and you believed those things to be true. So it's just something that you learn, and then you start knowing the truth, and you can make your own decisions about it. So a limiting belief, let's use, I'm going to use my life for an example to get started until anybody wants to call in. My parents, there was lots of conflict when my parents were together. And so if I looked at my family and I'm looking for love within my family, I look at my parents and there's conflict and fighting. So that's an idea and a belief that I had, that in a family there's conflict and there's fighting and parents don't get along. The other thing that I could add to that is, what do we believe about men and women in families? My dad was in the military at the time, so he was off working, and mom stayed home. So that was my belief system around that, until my parents were divorced and I had a single dad. So then I started developing a new belief system. What kind of belief systems did you have in your home growing up?
That's a good question. You caught me on the spot.
Because they would be healthier than mine.
Yeah,
there was less
so
conflict,
there was less
right?
conflict. I mean, of course, all parents do have their times when they're not getting along, and you'd see that, but you'd also see them make up and get along fine. I was raised with we were always friendly with our neighbors, our community, or with through the church, that kind of thing, where, so I was used to being in lots of social situations, and so for me, it was kind of like, I guess the values that I got from my family was that work is important, hard work is important, that kind of thing. So I worked hard at school. My parents worked hard. I mean, my mom stayed at home till I was, I think, in grade 4, and then she started to go back to work, and we shared responsibilities. If my mom worked later than my dad would come home and he would start making supper and have it ready by the time my mom got home an hour later, and my brother and I would chip in. We were either, one of us would help with the dishes, or like setting the table, and then the other one would be drying dishes at the end, and then we'd switch. And so that's kind of more my experience. The things that I learned in our family was chipping in and being responsible, and hard work is important, and that kind of thing.
Great.
So I guess not that's a limiting belief, other than to think that the only way to get ahead is to work hard. That doesn't always hold true, and that being overly responsible doesn't help either. If you go too far to saying, I've got to be totally responsible and can't ever just leave the dishes in the sink and go out and have some fun because the sun's shining, that kind of thing, or so there's all these things can go too far in another direction too. There's always that balance that a person needs to find for themselves.
Right. And I'm going to add to that too, like, it's not always coming from our families, like the limiting beliefs that are created, like you start grade 1 and or kindergarten, you start comparing yourself. Comparison is probably the hardest thing to break out of, is comparing ourselves to other people. And a lot of limiting beliefs get created there. Like, I'm not tall enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not good at sports, so I'm not going to get picked for the soccer team, or...
Well, for me, when I changed schools, one of my limiting beliefs would have become, boy, I'm not being accepted by the cool kids, so I used to think I was a cool kid. Maybe now I'm thinking maybe I'm not a cool kid. And then I started hanging with some other guys, made really good friends with some other kids, and we had similar things that we enjoyed and did them. But I started to think, why am I not fitting in with what I perceived and what, as society or the school and our peers perceived as the cool kids. And so I started making decisions about myself there, or questioning myself, I guess you'd say. So that would be a limiting belief for me, for sure.
Right, so I'm going to add to that is because my parents struggled so much, and my mom was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and so she was depressed a lot of the time, or she was in a manic phase. So in her depression, I was a little girl. I was 2, 3, 4 years old. So if she didn't get up out of bed and look after me, I started to believe things about myself, that I'm not a good enough girl. I'm not worthy of her love. I'm not enough for her to get up.
Not important enough.
And I'm not important enough. And it's not like she sat there and told me that. She didn't. She loved me in the best way that she knew how. However, I decided those things inside myself. And what I also decided was I better be the best little girl ever. And so I took on the role of a pleaser. And I thought, if I'm a super good girl and I do everything right, and I don't need anything from her, she would look after me. And that was developed within me, and so I call it like the disease to please. So I thought the only way that I could get her to love me is if I'm a good girl, I'm not in trouble, she doesn't have to look after me or dress me or take me to the park or anything. So I just decided in my being as a child that I would just please her and keep her happy and do everything right. So the damage that creates is, let's back that up. I can't do that, right? My mom's life and my mom's journey is hers alone. And my job isn't to earn her love. She loved me unconditionally. She just could only give me what she had. And as parents, we don't realize that we are creating that in our children. We just, as little souls, make those decisions that I have to please and I have to keep everybody happy. And the other thing that I decided is I need to keep the peace. There has to be harmony. And so I can't have any needs because there's no one here to meet my needs. So I just have to keep the peace, not rock the boat. However, growing up, then my parents were divorced. We moved to Alberta, and I grew up with that role, that mask that isn't really me. It's not authentically me. It's the role that I decided to live out in my life because I thought it was the only way to be and live and to get any of my needs met. So, the thing about this role is it can look pretty good, right? I can say all the right things and keep the peace and be happy. I knew how to be happy regardless of what was going on.
And most people like a pleaser. They like
Yeah.
having a pleaser around because then people get to have their way. And,
Right, and I'm always going to say, yes, I can do that. I can help you. I can do it all. Get the school spirit award and join every club and be in every sporting event and be the best friend anybody ever had. And until you get into, like, I met my first husband, and that's the role you carry on because I didn't know any other role. And you start to lose who you really are as you grow up because you think, nobody's going to meet my needs. I got to keep everybody else happy. I have to be happy. I have to show everybody how to be happy. And what we really don't realize is how much resentment is built up inside you because you're the real essence of who I am just gets less and less and less. And the authentic me, the person who I really am, just starts to crumble and gets lost in, especially if you're not pleasing, if you let somebody down or you say the wrong thing and now somebody's mad or disappointed. Oh, the guilt is just crushing. So it's not an authentic way to live at all. and then carrying it into a marriage is a recipe for disaster. Looks great for a long time, until, and we know that you can't keep up a role. You can't wear a mask your whole life and be happy and successful. There's got to be an authentic you that finds the balance in your body, mind, and your soul to live the life you're meant to here. So as that relationship moved into decades, the real me just disappeared until I really couldn't. You can't really survive that way, because there isn't success in that, because it's not based in truth and love and understanding and partnership. There's no true partnership with a pleaser, because a pleaser isn't, I didn't ask for what I needed in that relationship. So I had to learn to break. It's like a bad habit of being a pleaser, and you have to learn to find boundaries and say no, and authentically living from the heart. Because often a pleaser, how you know if you're a pleaser is if I'm saying yes to a friend or a partner and I'm saying no to myself, then I'm pleasing. It has to be a win-win, or I have to have boundaries to be able to say, this isn't a good fit for me. I can't help you. I can't do that. I'm not here to keep the peace. I'm here to be me. So that was a journey, and it's a tough journey. And I work with a lot of people that say, well, how do I break the habit of being a pleaser? And you have to start with small steps, by saying no to the small things, and then learning to say, this is not my guilt to carry. This is coming from a place of truth and love, and I need this boundary for myself and for my own growth.
And sometimes you have to stop and check in, or even say, instead of answering right away, because usually it's just they ask for something and it's an automatic yes, and then you might have to say, give me a chance to think about it. And then you get to stop and think, okay, where am I going to draw the line? Am I actually going to say no this time? And there's your opportunity there to stop. And then after that, you can start checking in quicker and quicker, I think, for people.
Yeah, so that's a journey. And most people, like, everybody's got their roles and their limiting beliefs around their life. And this is, when we're supporting somebody, it's the first place to start. Right? We have to figure out in their life, what did they learn about the role of men, the role of women, or love, right? What did love look like in your home? When you turned towards your parents for the love and support that you needed as a child, what did you get? So what did you believe? And if we could add to that too, and we get so many people ask us about, like, well, why would a limiting belief around money or health or around food, or like there's limiting beliefs around everything that we do in our life.
Well, here's another example, which again would look like potentially a positive thing, but can turn out to be a negative thing. For myself, growing up with an older brother, that made me I chose to become very competitive, because I wanted to keep up to my older brother. And so I started to compete to try and keep up with him and be as successful, and whenever we were doing things together, I wanted to be able to keep up and do as good or better than what he could do. So I carried that need for competition, into my other relationships, and needing to be the best, wanting to be the best.
And
exactly.
Right.
And yeah, keep it coming. And so that also can lead to a lot of independence, because you're wanting to do everything by yourself, and you want to have it all your accomplishments and everything that you're doing. And so there's times when, rather than reaching out for support or partnering or cooperating with other people, it's always like, no, I want to do this by myself and show everybody how great I can do it, and how I can do it perfect, and how I can do it better than somebody else. And so that need to be competitive, and it can be ends up can be a negative thing when it comes into relationships. And that part where then you get a partner and you're still in this very independent place and you don't ask for help, and then you also expect that they're going to just do their thing and be independent and not ask for help, and then now you're not really supporting each other and being open with each other, where you really could use some help, and so it just doesn't. When you go the other way and you move away from the independence and competition and move more towards cooperation and partnering and sharing, that's the way to make a relationship grow closer together, as opposed to keeping those relationships in more separate, competitive places.
And if I can add, like, you're a really intelligent person, and so it adds to that place of competition. And I know personally that it's a place where we can struggle, where you're very accomplished and you know how to manage a lot of things, and you're in so many areas you're better than me, right? And you know that, and right, so then my limiting belief around it, I had 2 older brothers that were super intelligent too, so I felt stupid around them because they were more academic than I was. So it's not that I was stupid. I believed that I was. It was the limiting belief that I'm not as smart as my brothers. And I do that. I fall into that place with you sometimes because you are very accomplished and you usually know a really intelligent way to manage something. And if it's an area that isn't my strength, I will automatically go to that place of, I'm probably not smart enough to do this because Dawn's going to do it better than me. And I have to let that go because it's not the truth. We have our strengths and we have our weaknesses, but that doesn't mean you're better and I'm worse, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's just the way our relationship unfolds. But that limiting belief will come and just get me, like, you're stupid and you're not going to get this. And we do whole processes on letting those limiting beliefs go because it doesn't support our relationship at all. It doesn't support any relationship at all. It just creates resentment and it's a wedge, and there's disconnect, and we fall out of partnership instantly if I start believing something that's not true. And I refuse to go there. And if I would add to that, when those kinds of things come up, I go, oh, hold on. I realize I'm slipping into that place where I like to think that I'm not smart enough for this. And I share it with Dawn. I'm like, I'm tempted to think that way, and it's not true. And I go right into a positive affirmation is, no, I am capable, and I am worthy, and I'm smart enough, and I am enough, and I always will be. But if you can handle this situation better than me, handle it, please, because it doesn't mean I'm less. It just means we have different strengths.
Yeah, and oftentimes I'm tempted to just jump in and say, just stand back, and I'll take care of this. But it also, if I actually stop and we talk about it, and then I want your perspective on it too, because then, here's somebody that walks in, she's fun-loving, lights up a room when she walks into a room, and it's going to have a different perspective than I will when I'm just in my head and have this big logical way of looking at something. But it helps to have somebody looking at it with a different perspective and just say, did you consider this? And there may be definitely pieces that I could easily miss, and so to be open to actually taking the best of both of what we see in a situation and working that out that way.
Right, and so like I touched on a little bit, like the only way through a limiting belief is a new positive affirmation about your life, is almost saying to that limiting belief, I see you, but I won't accept you because that's not who I am, and I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to acknowledge my value, acknowledge my intelligence, and acknowledge my worthiness and my deservability to partner with this situation and add my 2 bits in and whatever I have to share. But one of us is going to do something better or stronger or more successful, and that's just life. And that's why we partner and we share and we, call each other out on those things. Is like, he doesn't want me to walk around saying I'm stupid, because what kind of a partner am I, right? Then I only, I'm going to make more mistakes. But if I say, hey, I'm worthy of your love, and I am smart enough for you, and I'm more than enough of a partner, and I'm willing to own that limiting belief and come back with love and compassion and understanding, then he's excited about a partnership with me, because it's fun. Because nobody wants a pleaser just to be a doormat on the floor that they can wipe their feet on. Like, that's not a life. And nor does, the pleaser doesn't want it either, but you're trapped there and you don't know your way out. So when you get stuck that way, you need support. You need support to get through it. You need a really good team of people to coach you through it. And that's why we love to do it, because we've gone through the trenches. We've gone through the trenches of it all, of the struggles and the fights and what holds us back. And what limits our relationship is usually our thinking, our limited beliefs that we allow to come into the situation. And when we literally have to go, whoa, yeah, I see this coming in, but I'm not going to allow it. I won't. I'm going to turn it around, and sometimes I need your help. So that's what we do. And
yeah, and oftentimes it's going back to your childhood and finding where these beliefs came from, and feeling feelings around those situations, and that really is another first step towards releasing the old patterns, and then so you can replace it with a new pattern, new thought, new belief.
And we get a lot of questions around, even money, how does that play in? How do you, because really, in marriages and partnerships between two people, the big conflicts are sex and money and kids. Those are the biggies, and people ask us about that all the time, right? How do I get through this with a partner that won't support me, or we're not connecting, there isn't the connection, and I don't know, every time this happens I'm really, really mad and I don't know how to handle it.
Well, and there's often opposing beliefs or values around parenting. If you were parented different than I was parented, you grow up with those beliefs and values around parenting, and then when you see somebody doing it different, you want to say, well, no, my way's right and your way's wrong, and vice versa. And it's actually, and so there's another opportunity to actually partner and say, between the two of us, what, how do we as a couple want to partner, and where are we going to set the boundaries so that the kids have one set of boundaries and not mom's boundaries and dad's boundaries, or dad's iron fist and mom's the wishy-washy one, or vice versa. It could be the mom could be that tough one, and the dad could be the wishy-washy one, because he doesn't see the kids as much possibly, and so you never know which way that's going to go. But it's important for for couples to partner, parents to partner on where the boundary's going to set, so the parents or the kids get the same story, the same boundaries from both parents.
Right. And the one thing that jumps into my mind about that is, we like to work with couples before they end up, in a committed relationship, having kids. Why don't you come and find out, how, what this partnership can look like. Find out what all your family beliefs and values and your core needs and your limiting beliefs that come from your life, and then your partner too. Come do a session with us and find out all those things, because we could pinpoint anything in a relationship where there's going to be conflict. If you have two opposing personalities and ways people were raised, and it could be as simple as, let's use spanking or something like that. If you were spanked as a child, or one parent was spanked, one wasn't, or my dad didn't even yell, there wasn't. So when I hear yelling, I'm shocked by it, right? Because I didn't have that experience growing up. and everything is the same. Like, you know, how did my dad handle money growing up? Like, I never believed that we didn't have enough money. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but he never said, you know, money doesn't grow on trees or you're going to have to work hard. No, he made me believe that there was always enough money for everything. So there's safety around that part of our life. I mean, there was lots of areas of our life that weren't safe, but I felt safe around money. I felt safe around food. Like, those things didn't come up in our life. But that's not true for a lot of people. A lot of people have lots of issues around food, or like, if your parents are very fearful all the time, like if you're really afraid of anything, like if they were raised to believe that, you know, white people are better than colored people, like, then these kids grow up with this idea to be afraid of differences in people, and it holds people back, and it creates conflict, and it creates wars. It creates...
Some people believe that other people will take advantage of you. So what are you going to attract to yourself? People that are going to potentially try and take advantage of you. Whereas if you believe that people are trustworthy and fair, you'll be more likely to be attracted to and dealing with those types of people.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so the bottom line is everything that we learn is from our childhoods and growing up and what we decide. And it could be anything, right, around money, around food, but there's really good things too, like beliefs around being physically fit and being outside in nature and drinking a lot of water. Like, there's really great beliefs that we get passed on through our childhood and our families, like you did.
And spending time with family, you know, that family time is important, and you know, aunts and uncles and cousins are important, and grandparents are important, and that, you know, that you go out of your way to spend time with family. Those types of things are great things that you learn from your family, if that's the things, that values that they gave you. You know.
And what often
not everybody gets
not
that.
everybody, right? And that's, I mean, usually the people that we work with they have a lot of limiting beliefs, and they come to our programs or our coaching and they're suffering, and their life isn't successful, and they don't know how. And what happens is they blame the people around them, right? Based on their limiting beliefs that this world is tough. I don't have a good job. I don't have a good relationship. I don't have any management over my kids. They're running me ragged, and I'm stressed, I'm depressed, and I can't do this, and, you know, and then they just hit a roadblock, right? They just don't know where to turn.
It gets overwhelming, yeah.
Very overwhelming. And what we love to be able to do is encourage people to reach out. Like, it's a sign of strength, and a sign of I value myself, and I'm willing to change the limiting beliefs of my life to create a life that really works. And as soon as you start turning it around, it's actually pretty fast. It's just becoming aware of where you were held back. And once you know that...
Yeah, once you're willing to own it and take responsibility for the life that you have created, and then make whatever changes you need to make, and then you start creating a life that you do want, instead of living the life that is just a result of what the beliefs you've been carrying.
And what I love about that is, you know, often when we're struggling in our families or even in our business, we go into management teams and help them learn what holds you back from your best potential in the corporation that you work for, or anything. It doesn't matter if it's in your family or at work or in your partnership or your friendships. It's we all want to do better, and we want to have a lot of freedom in this life and live it the way we want and what we're meant to do. And when we're not doing that, it's crushing. It's crushing. And so we love to be able to help people through it before they're at those places of, my life is horrible and I don't even want to live it anymore. It's reach out when you have a little struggle in a relationship and get through it. Because once you learn some skills and know some knowledge and have a toolbox full of ways to manage stuff, your life turns into a beautiful journey that you're not afraid of anymore. And that's why Dawn and I chose to do what we're doing, is we're not afraid. When we have a conflict or we're triggered by someone, something,
Or each other.
We're just like, all right, great, we got a new place to grow. We got a new place to discover something new about ourselves. A place where we're limited, we want to uncover it, face it, and move forward, because it'll open another door for us into freedom and love and connection. And that's what we all really want.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to shift something that's not working, or conflict, into some actual joy and the joy of accomplishment and satisfaction as well, and more connection in a relationship when you work things out together.
And one thing to end on is, and I'm sure you would agree, because we spent the last 6 years like totally facing everything from our past marriages and the mistakes we made parenting, and there's many. Like, we are not sitting here to say we did it perfect. We're sitting here to say we know how to support people because we made every mistake in the book. Like, we went through the trenches, through the money problems, intimacy, parenting, what we learned at home, struggle in relationships, struggle through our fears.
Guilt, shame,
everything.
All these deep-seated emotions.
Yeah, we've been to the dark places, and we know how to shine the light and find the way back. And that's why we are passionate about what we do, because we know the way through. We have the map, the road map. We know how to get people through the struggles, because we've done it thousands and thousands of times. And if I could add one more thing,
Of course.
and this is, I like to say this with everybody that we work with, every person, every place, every experience, every job, every boss, every person on the street, they are there to show you the next step in your growth. If you're in a conflict, if you're in a good place, there's growth available with every experience that we have in this life, if we're willing to drop the blame and drop, I don't like you, you don't make me happy, all the limiting things that hold us back.
Yeah, you just ask the question, what is this person showing me today?
Yeah, or what is this experience showing me today? I couldn't even get in the back of the clinic door today. I got the key and I'm turning, I'm like, okay, where am I locked up that I can't get through, right? What am I doing? What's this showing me, right? And if we're willing to stop in our life and go, hold on, what is this showing me today, right? Then, and I'm not blaming anybody or turning to the world and saying all those things that are negative. I'm willing to look at it in a positive way and say, I guess this is for my growth. What's here for me to learn today?
How are we doing for time, Jess? Are we time to wrap up?
Okay, so one thing, we want to add too.
Go ahead. Sorry.
We say it when we're finished
Okay.
with a lot of what we do with our shows and our programs.
Are we going to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
So the events we talked about, if you go on our website, lifeworksinternational.ca, we have an events page. It'll show you what the upcoming events. If you follow us on Facebook, LifeWorks International on Facebook, we post the events there. So you can keep track of what we're doing and where we're at. And we'll see you again next week.
All right.